Okay, do me a favor. Hold up your hand in front of your face.
Hmm.
Just, stare at it for a second. It looks solid, right? It looks real.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that what you were seeing isn't, it isn't actually your hand?
Right.
What you were seeing is a prediction, a calculated guess your brain made a split second ago about what your hand should look like.
It sounds a little bit like the opening of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it?
It really
But
does.
that's the literal biological starting point of the paper we're breaking down today.
And it is a monster of a paper. We're doing a deep dive into a grand unified neuroalgorithmic theory of mind and blueprint for artificial general intelligence.
It's a mouthful.
It's a huge mouthful. It was just published this month, January 2026, by a researcher named Jeremy S. Meredith. And I mean, the title alone it's audacious.
Oh, absolutely. Grand unified theory is, that's language usually reserved for physics, for Einstein.
Not for the brain.
Not for neuroscience. And you have to understand, neuroscience has been so fragmented for decades. You have the global workspace people over here, the predictive coding camp over there.
Everyone has their own little piece of the puzzle.
They're all in different corners of the room. And Meredith is essentially walking in, slamming a binder on the table, and saying,
I've got it. Here's the box art.
exactly. I know how the whole picture fits together.
And he's not just talking about biology, he's talking about code. That subtitle, Blueprint for AGI, is saying if you solder these parts together, you don't just get a chatbot.
You get a mind. You get something that wakes up.
Whoa.
He calls it the resynthetic architectural design. It's a 12-component circuit diagram for consciousness.
Yeah.
So the mission for this deep dive is to see if we can, actually build it.
So let's pop the hood then. The paper starts by saying you have to stop thinking of the brain as a camera. It's not just passively recording reality.
No, it's a predictive engine. And this is the core loop. And it really changes everything. The paper breaks it down into 3 key parts: the resonator, the stream, and the cascade.
Okay, let's start with the resonator. That's the part that does the guessing.
Think of it as the continuity machine. It looks at your current conscious state, what you're doing right now, and it projects it forward. It generates a top-down prediction of what the world will be in the next millisecond.
Okay, and the paper actually ties this to something physical.
Yes, to beta waves, that humming electrical signal in your brain. The paper says that's the sound of the resonator going, the world is staying the same. The world is staying the same.
So that's the prediction coming down from the top. I expect to see my hand. Then you have reality crashing in from the bottom.
And that's the stream, just raw sensory input. Light hitting your retina, sound hitting your eardrum.
And they collide in the cascade.
The comparison engine. And this is where the magic happens. The cascade literally subtracts the prediction from the reality. It's called predictive cancellation.
So if my brain expects the fan to be humming, and it is humming,
The signals cancel each other out. It becomes zero. Silence. Your brain ignores it.
that is wild if you really stop to think about it. It means we are biologically wired to be blind to anything we predict correctly. We only see the error.
We only see the surprise. That residual error signal is the only thing that gets passed up the chain. Evolutionarily, it makes perfect sense,
Sure.
You don't need to waste energy noticing the ground is still solid. You need to know if there's a crack in it.
This explains that autopilot feeling perfectly. I drove here today. It's a 20-minute drive, and I honestly don't remember a single traffic light. My resonator just predicted the whole drive, so my brain basically deleted the footage.
Precisely. The resonator said, I know this road. The stream confirmed it, and the cascade was just 0, 0, 0. But here's the catch. If you passed every single tiny error up to your conscious mind, you'd be catatonic, overwhelmed.
Right, because the prediction is never absolutely perfect. There's always some noise. So you need a filter. You need a bouncer at the club door.
Enter the arbiter.
I love the names in this paper. They're so sci-fi.
They are, but they're describing real wetware. So the arbiter sits between that raw surprise signal and your actual awareness.
And it's like a gatekeeper. It asks, is this surprising enough to bother the boss with?
Exactly that. It has a dynamic threshold. If the error is small, like the fridge hum changes pitch slightly, the arbiter just slams the gate shut.
And the paper says there's a real mechanism for that slamming, right? It's not just a metaphor.
Oh, it's biological. It's alpha waves.
Okay, now we usually think of alpha as relaxation, get into the alpha state to chill out thing.
Right. That's the meditation app version.
Yeah.
But Meredith's model says alpha is actually active inhibition. It's the neural noise of the arbiter shouting no.
So it's not relaxation, it's active blocking.
It's your brain working hard to ignore the noise so you can focus.
Okay, so what if a signal is big enough? A tiger jumps out, someone screams my name. It bursts through the arbiter. Where does it go?
Then it enters the focus. And this links directly to what scientists call global workspace theory. The focus is a single-item register. It's the spotlight.
And the rule is we can only have one thing in that spotlight at a time.
Just one. Your brain is doing millions of things in parallel subconsciously, but consciousness is a serial bottleneck. Life comes at you one frame at a time.
And once a thought is in the focus, it gets broadcast out to the rest of the system.
Exactly. That broadcast updates the resonator, which creates the next prediction, and the whole loop starts again.
So to really oversimplify it, consciousness is just a series of surprises that were loud enough to get past the bouncer.
It's a cynical summary, but yeah, technically that's the model. We're surfing on a wave of our own prediction errors.
But hold on. That works for, immediate reactions, but we have history, context. A small noise in a dark alley is a huge deal. That same noise at a concert is nothing. How does the machine know the difference? Where's the memory?
This brings us to a component the paper calls the lattice.
The lattice. Okay, this was the part that kind of broke my brain a little.
It is a heavy concept. You have to totally ditch the filing cabinet analogy for memory.
No folders for grandma's house.
No index cards, no MP4 files. The lattice is a hyperdimensional associative knowledge graph.
Okay, hyperdimensional is one of those words that can make your eyes glaze over. Let's unpack that.
Okay, think of a 3D space like the room you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You could locate anything with three numbers, right? Height, width, depth.
Sure.
Now, imagine a mathematical space with thousands of dimensions. Every memory isn't a file. It's a coordinate in that huge space. So apple is at a specific coordinate.
And when you retrieve it, you're not searching a list.
No, it's about resonance. If you think apple, the lattice vibrates at that coordinate. And because of how the space is structured, everything located near apple, red, fruit, pie, teacher, it all lights up automatically.
It's like plucking a spider web. You touch one strand, and the whole area vibrates.
Exactly, it's holographic. But the lattice has a secret weapon. It doesn't just store facts. It stores feeling states, somatic markers.
This is the gut feeling, the vibes.
Yes, but it's scientifically defined as interoception. When you touched a hot stove as a kid, the lattice didn't just store the visual. It stored the racing heart, the pain, the adrenaline.
Right.
So now, years later, when you see a stove, you don't just know it's hot. You physically, faintly re-experience that state.
So memory is literally a physical reenactment.
In this model, yes.
Yeah.
And this is crucial for the next component, the modulator.
A modulator, the boss.
A master controller. The modulator reads those gut feelings coming off the lattice and uses them to tune the rest of the system.
And specifically, it tunes the arbiter. I see where this is going.
Yep. Let's go back to your dark alley example.
Okay.
You walk into the alley. The lattice recognizes the context dark, enclosed. It retrieves the fear association. The modulator reads that fear signal and immediately cranks the arbiter's threshold all the way down to 0.
The bouncer is fired. The door is wide open.
And everything gets in. A leaf scratching the pavement sounds like a gunshot. You are hyper-aware.
But if I'm safe on my couch, the lattice retrieves safety, and the modulator turns the threshold way up.
And you can ignore everything.
That's a huge insight. Our attention span isn't fixed. It's chemically tuned by our emotional state. We literally see more or less of the world depending on how we feel.
It's the bridge between emotion and logic.
Yeah.
Without the feeling, the logic has no priorities.
Okay, this all sounds great for a biological brain, but the paper claims this is a blueprint for AGI. Computers just have code. They don't know what an apple is. They just know the binary for the word. How does this solve that?
You're talking about the symbol grounding problem. It is maybe the biggest problem in AI. How do you make a machine actually understand?
Right. How does the ghost get into the machine?
Well, the paper proposes this fascinating dual pathway solution with two components, the veil and the loom.
The veil and the loom. I really hope the engineers keep these names if they ever build this.
It sounds like a fantasy novel, but the mechanics are pure engineering. The veil is the stable bridge. It just handles raw sensory data, the pixels from your eyes. That part doesn't really change.
Okay, so that's red sphere at coordinate X.
Right. But the loom is the plastic bridge. It handles memory and imagination. And here's the key. The loom's job is to learn to mimic the veil.
Mimic it? How?
Think of it like a simulator. When you look at a real apple, the veil creates a specific firing pattern in your visual cortex. The loom watches that pattern. It studies it.
Mm.
Later, when you close your eyes and just imagine an apple, the loom activates and tries to recreate that exact same pattern on the same hardware.
So it's forcing the abstract idea of Apple to use the same neural real estate as the physical experience of an apple.
Exactly. That's how the symbol gets grounded. If the loom works, thinking about a hot stove triggers the same sensory and emotional circuits as touching one, just at a lower volume.
That is profoundly cool. It means imagination isn't just fluffy daydreaming. It's a system diagnostic.
And that checking mechanism is also how it learns. The paper talks about a three-factor Hebbian learning rule. You know the old saying, neurons that fire together wire together?
Sure, Psych 101.
Well, this paper says that's not enough. If that were true, you'd memorize everything. The feeling of your socks, the sound of the air conditioner, your brain would fill up in an hour.
So you need a save button, something that tells the brain, this one is important, keep it.
Precisely. You need three factors. One, the cue, what just happened. Two, the error, the surprise. And three, the save signal.
And let me guess, the modulator sends the save signal.
Correct. When something is meaningful enough, triggers a big emotion or a massive surprise, the modulator floods the network with a signal, like dopamine, and that tells the lattice, burn this connection in.
No surprise, no emotion, no learning. This is why I can't remember what I had for lunch 2 days ago.
But do you remember where you were on 9/11?
Yeah. High emotion, massive save signal.
It's just brutal efficiency.
One of the things that lends this paper so much credibility is how it maps these abstract terms to real biology. We talked about beta and alpha waves.
But it maps the whole spectrum. It basically says, we know what these are for now. So, for example, it says gamma waves, the really fast ones, are the carrier.
The carrier.
They bind the high-res details of a thought together. If the thought is a package, gamma is the delivery truck speeding into the focus.
Okay. And what about theta?
Theta waves are those slower rhythms in the hippocampus.
The memory center.
Right. In this model, theta is the librarian. It sets the tempo for retrieving memories from the lattice.
And delta, that's deep sleep.
Offline maintenance, that's what the paper calls it. When you sleep, the system shuts down the external world and uses delta waves to prune bad connections and consolidate the good ones.
It's running a defrag on your brain.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it explains why sleep deprivation just destroys your ability to think.
It even offers an explanation for the P300 signal, right?
Yeah, the P300 is that famous spike in brain activity about 300 milliseconds after you see something important. This theory says the P300 is the focus updating. It's the physical signature of a thought crashing into consciousness.
Which means we're all living about 300 milliseconds in the past.
We are living in the delay. By the time you are conscious of seeing something, it happened a third of a second ago.
That's slightly unsettling. Let's zoom out to the application.
Yeah.
The paper talks about computational psychiatry, specifically ADHD. And, well, as someone who gets the distracted label, I found this part incredibly validating.
It completely changes the paradigm. Conditions like ADHD aren't seen as broken circuits. They're just different parameter settings on the arbiter.
It's that threshold dial again.
Exactly. The paper describes an exploratory agent. This is a brain where the arbiter's threshold is set naturally low.
So the gate is always open, more distractions get in, the buzzing fly, the shiny object.
Classic ADHD symptoms. But look at the flip side. Because you notice everything, you are faster at detecting changes. You're more creative because you're letting in irrelevant data that might connect two different ideas.
As opposed to the methodical agent.
Who has a high threshold, great at focusing on a known plan, but they might miss a subtle opportunity. They might be slower to adapt when the rules change.
So it redefines it not as a deficit, but as a trade-off. In a chaotic environment, like a startup, you want the explorer. In a stable environment, you want the methodical one.
And ideally, the modulator adjusts that dial. But for some of us, that dial's a bit stiff. You get stuck in explore mode.
That framing is just so much more helpful. Okay, the elephant in the room. The paper says this is a blueprint for AGI. If we build this, is it alive?
That is the ultimate question. The paper argues this architecture solves the so-called easy problems of consciousness.
And easy is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that phrase.
In philosophy, yeah. The easy problems are things like behavior, reporting internal states, focusing attention. A machine built this way would act conscious. It would report being surprised. It would get distracted. It would need to sleep.
It sounds totally indistinguishable from a human.
But Meredith is honest about the limit here. He admits this might just create a philosophical zombie.
A zombie?
It's a thought experiment. A being that behaves perfectly human. It screams when you pinch it, it laughs, it writes poetry, but There's no inner light. No subjective experience. It's all dark inside.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Exactly. The architecture explains the mechanics, the when, where, what, and how of thought. But it leaves the why of the self as an open question.
So we could build a machine that thinks it's conscious, and we'd have no way of knowing if it really is?
If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck,
Mm-hmm.
does it matter if it has a soul? Or is soul just the hum of the machine running its code?
That is going to keep me up tonight.
It should. Because this isn't just theory anymore. This is a computable architecture. Someone is going to code this.
So to bring this all home, we've gone from a prediction engine to a conscious workspace, grounded by gut feelings, tuned by brain waves. What's the biggest takeaway here?
I think it's realizing that your experience of reality is a complete construct. It's a generated movie, edited by your arbiter and colored by your lattice. You are not seeing the world. You're seeing your brain's best guess of it.
And our so-called glitches, getting distracted, feeling a sudden pang of fear, those aren't bugs. They're features of the algorithm doing its job.
The source code running its loops.
So here's a final thought to chew on. The paper suggests our most human traits, creativity, distraction, learning, are just parameter settings. If we build this architecture into a robot and we turn its arbiter threshold way down.
And it starts getting distracted by shiny objects.
Exactly. If it starts making irrational choices because of a gut feeling, is that robot malfunctioning? Or is it finally becoming human?
I suspect we're going to find out a lot sooner than we think.
On that note, pay attention to your own arbiter today. What surprises are you letting in? Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you in the next cycle.